Hey, what's up, Sun Devil fans? Ethan Schmidt here with Devil's Digest, and I'm joined alongside our publisher, Hode Rubino, as always, as we preview Arizona State's Pac-12 opener against Colorado right here in Tempe on Saturday night. Now, Hode, obviously a huge upset win at East Lansing. The Sun Devils able to pull it out with that 10-7 victory, and emotions are probably running pretty high. So coming into Saturday's game against Colorado, there could be that natural fear of a letdown possibly, and obviously Colorado probably isn't up to the same caliber as Michigan State. So how does ASU guard against a possible trap game this weekend?
Well, as the saying goes, Ethan, those that do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and with the ironic element over here is that a big win against Michigan State here in Sun Devil Stadium in 2018 is what preceded a letdown with a loss to San Diego State the next week. Later on in the season, Arizona State, huge win, 38-20 against Utah. They were in the driver's seat for the Pac-12 South Championship, controlled their own destiny. The week after that game, they barely beat UCLA, not an impressive performance, go to Oregon, lose a game that was supposed to win, a miracle win, obviously, in Tucson against U of A, and a disappointing loss in Las Vegas Bowl to Fresno State. So not being able to handle success is something that Herm Edwards talked a lot about last year, and he talked about this year as well too. I just think that there is something to be said about the buy-in factor of a team. First-year coaching staff, coaches are trying to feel the players are trying to feel the coaches, and it really something that goes beyond X's and O's. We're just talking about really the mental aspect of the game, just the relationships between coach and player. You like to think that that aspect is really less of an issue in year two of a coaching staff. Everybody knows what the level of expectations are in terms of coaches, players, coaches.
You definitely hope so.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that's something that, at least on paper, should guard from a letdown. Now, when you talk about a possible letdown, there has to be some kind of high you need to come off of. And sure, you got maybe the general high of, like you said, an upset win against the number 18 team in the country, and now ASU, as a result, is ranked number 24 in the polls. But when you look at as far as the offense and the defense, I don't know if the offense really has any high to come off of. I mean, let's face it, they only scored 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games. And granted, and Rob Likens talked about this earlier today, there's the big difference between scoring 1 touchdown against an FCS team like Sacramento State versus scoring a touchdown against one of the best defenses in college football in Michigan State in a game that was absolute grind-out game on the road. But nonetheless, I just don't think the ASU offense right now is in any kind of position to be cocky or to be overconfident. Sure, they showed they could grind out a win against Michigan State, but at the end of the day, it really was a borderline miraculous fourth quarter drive that won in the game. So I don't know if any letdown parameters really exist for this Arizona State offense. Now, as far as the defense, I think it's a good thing that defensive coordinator Danny Gonzalez, we said this a million times, I'll probably said a million times more, he is just never satisfied. And even though this defense has only been giving up 7 points each and every game, obviously keeping the Sun Devils in each and every contest, I think that just that relentless pursuit of perfection, the relentless pursuit of shutting out a team, something obviously that Arizona State has come very close to because the only touchdowns they give up are late in the fourth quarters in each of those 3 games. I think that is a parameter on that side of the ball that doesn't allow that group to have a letdown just because they're still pursuing perfection, pursuing maybe something that might be impossible to shut out a team in Pac-12 play, but nonetheless, they are still pursuing that. So when you look at all those factors, Ethan, I think that ASU, again, at least on paper, is probably better guarded against a letdown maybe compared to this time last year after they beat Michigan State. But, we can talk about theories as much as we want. The reality is going to materialize on Saturday night here in Sun Devil Stadium.
Well, you touched on the offense a little bit, and you talked about their struggles. So diving into that side of the ball, obviously you talked about it, only a touchdown in each of the last 2 games. So what is Jaden Daniels and company going to have to do to try to find a rhythm? And do you think that this Colorado Buffaloes defense provides an opportunity to do so?
Well, to answer your second question first, I think when you look at the stat sheet, you're looking at a Colorado defense that definitely has struggled. I mean, granted, the team is 2-1, so it's not an abomination of a season, but it's still a defense that has yielded over 470 yards and 30 points on average. So there are definitely ripe opportunities over there for Arizona State to put points, more points on the board and be more productive. It is a defense that has had the propensity to give up a lot of big plays in the first 3 weeks. That is something that Arizona State really has to capitalize on. Another factor that we talked at length so far in this young season is the play of the offensive line, and we all know by now Arizona State last week featured its third different offensive line. There are only 10 or so true freshmen in all of FBS schools starting on the offensive line. Arizona State has 2 of them. That just shows you
It's unbelievable.
it really is believable, and it really shows you just how unique, good or bad, I guess how we're going to look at it, the Arizona State offensive line is right now. But I have no doubt in my mind that this is a unit where the dominoes are going to fall one way or another. And this offensive line, who didn't play horribly against Michigan State and obviously facing probably the best defensive line from number 1 to number 4 in the country, did perform pretty well against the Spartans. So I think they have something to build on in terms of confidence. Maybe those true freshmen grew up really in a hurry just by playing that caliber of opponent last week in East Lansing. But if that offensive line can really settle down, clean up whatever they need to clean up, obviously they're facing an offensive line that is nowhere close in talent to that of Michigan State. If that domino can fall, like I said, the right way, I just think everything in terms of establishing rhythm with the running game, being more effective in the passing game, I think that can definitely happen. So again, Colorado definitely provides you the opportunities to do so. They proved that in the first 3 weeks of the season. But again, this offensive line has to play probably much beyond the years, just like their quarterback, Jaden Daniels, right now is playing like anything but a true freshman.
You're definitely right there about Jaden Daniels. And coming into this contest on Saturday night, the Arizona State rushing attack is 10th best in the Pac-12, Colorado at 11th best, so somebody's going to have to break there. But now looking at the defense, Arizona State's defense has been nothing short of unbelievable throughout the first 3 games thus far, giving up just 1 touchdown in each of those games. So Hode, going against this game, going into Colorado, do you see this high level of success continuing for Danny Gonzalez's unit?
Well, it's really interesting because Colorado, in most of their games so far, has been notoriously a slow starter on offense. And interestingly enough, Arizona State defense is the one that really shuts out teams for the first 3 quarters. The only touchdowns they give up are in the fourth quarter. So that's something that will be interesting to see if that trend continues to both teams. That definitely puts Colorado in a hole. Obviously gives the Arizona State defense that much more confidence, building on a very solid performance in East Lansing last week. But look, it's no secret that even though Colorado has been struggling so far, they do have quite a bit of firepower, which is really regulated more to their passing game. Steven Montez is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in this conference. Mm-hmm. Lavisca Chenault, the wide receiver, we all know what he did to the Sun Devils last year in Boulder.
Yeah, he's just a beast of an athlete.
Absolutely. Somebody much like a N'Keal Harry, where he lines up in different parts of the field and being very, very effective no matter what task he's asked to execute. K.D. Nixon, probably one of the best number 2 wide receivers in the Pac-12. So Arizona State, compared to the first 3 opponents they faced so far, are definitely going to have their hands full in terms of a very effective passing game, and something that they're going to see much more of now that Pac-12 play is beginning. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, the Colorado rushing attack really has struggled, and I expect Arizona State, even though Colorado does have a prolific passing game, to really put a lot of pressure on the Colorado offensive line, really frustrate Steven Montez as much as they can. And if this game plays out like most of the games that Arizona State played, where the defense is able to shut out the team for the first 3 quarters, but maybe the different part is that the Arizona State offense is getting more in rhythm, is able to put more points on the board. Now when Colorado is forced to throw the ball, even though that is the strength of their offense, I think that Arizona State is proven that if they can just pin their ears back and play very, very well in coverage, that can frustrate passing games of a lot of opponents out there. So I think that that's the ideal scenario that the Arizona State defense would like to see. And like I said, it's really it really would be true to script with how the Colorado offense has performed so far. It's a team that definitely takes, like I said, a lot of time to warm up, plays much better in the third and fourth quarter. The point disparity between the quarters is really amazing between the first half and the second half. I know Arizona State, quote unquote, only gives up touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They just have to make sure that they don't give up too many touchdowns in that period if the game is really very dominant by ASU for the first three quarters. So it's definitely a taller task for the Arizona State defense. But the way they're playing in the first 3 weeks, I don't think it's too much of a hurdle to conquer for them.
Well, the defense has definitely worn the cape thus far for Arizona State. But Saturday night, when those lights come on, the players take Frank Kush Field, the band's there, the crowd's there, everybody's fired up for the Pac-12 opener. Just when you look at all the possible variables that will be on the field on Saturday night, what are some of the more significant keys? And Hode, I know you got a score prediction for us.
Well, I'll keep the score prediction for the last. But in terms of the keys, I think it really goes back to our first point of not having a letdown. And like I said, I think there's a lot of parameters in place right now that may not have been here this time last year to guard against that letdown. I think that the mindset really has to be right. Arizona State has to come out like their backs are to the wall, like they're 0-3 rather than 3-0, and really play with a sense of desperation. And if they do that, I think that is something that can really help them en route to victory. When you look at the offensive side of the ball, the running game has to get going. If Arizona State can get into a rhythm, really control the ball better than they controlled the last couple of weeks, and really keep guys like Montez, Chenault, Katie Nixon off the field as much as they can, that is something that definitely could put Colorado in a hole, and more importantly, give the Arizona State offense the confidence that I think they sorely need right now, even after an upset win at East Lansing last week. When it comes to the defense, I guess the only criticism that at least maybe people other than Danny Gonzalez can have right now is that they're always giving up touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and they have been lucky so far that it hasn't come back to hurt them. And yes, they are carrying the offense and the entire team quite a bit. You would like to see this Arizona State defense to operate with a larger margin of error, maybe for a change, but those fourth quarter letdowns, they have to make sure that if they do happen, that the game is really out of reach, and if the game happens to be really close going into the fourth quarter, this Arizona State defense that a lot has been expected from them, a lot has been asked from them, are really going to have to elevate their performance that much more. I think that this game is going to play out where Arizona State maybe doesn't come out blazing out of the gates on offense, but defense is playing the usual high level, and maybe in the fourth quarter are giving up some points. But I think the ASU offense, as the game goes along, grows more and more comfortable, gets more and more in a rhythm, and I see the Sun Devils winning their Pac-12 opener 30-13.
Well, there you have it, folks. And just one thing to mention, Rob Likens mentioned that, Benjamin was around the same amount of rushing yards at this point last year. So the Sun Devils definitely looking to get that running game popping off against Colorado. Well, thank you, Hode. And for all your pregame, in-game, and post-game coverage of ASU's Pac-12 opener against Colorado, keep it locked on DevilsDigest.com. That's Hode Rubino. I'm Ethan Schmidt. We'll see you Saturday.